Let's get into it. So for those of you attending who I haven't met, my name is Francesca. I am a senior account manager at Shoplogix, and I work with a lot of our customers, specifically within the food and beverage and packaging space, to help ensure that they're using Shoplogix features to the fullest extent, and that their knowledge and understanding of Shoplogix grows and improves with their own continuous improvement goals and objectives. I also have Brock on the call with me today to discuss our jobs webinar. Brock?
All right, good morning to all. This is Brock Ellwood. I'm an implementation consultant, systems engineer with Shoplogix. I've been with them really since the initial round of venture capital. So have about 15 years experience installing Shoplogix and doing a variety of levels of integration with customers.
Great. Well, today what we have on the agenda for you is, first we'll start introducing what jobs are, exploring some key job information, some of the benefits you can get from incorporating job data into Shoplogix, explore some use cases on how you can use job information in Whiteboard and in our analytics portal as well. And we'll look at the platform a little bit together, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end. If any questions do pop up during the webinar, I'll ask you to just throw it in the chat, and we can take them up together either during or at the end, depending on what's most appropriate. But without further ado. So many of you are familiar with using Shoplogix to capture data such as uptime, downtime, performance, and scrap. And many of you are probably analyzing this data largely on time-based dimensions. So reviewing uptime and downtime by shift, maybe by day, by month. But what our aim today is to introduce you to a new dimension. So using Shoplogix to analyze data outside of time boundaries and review production data by the jobs that you're running. So, let's start by introducing what jobs are. So we define jobs as a way for customers to identify the work that's being produced on their machines, on their assets. But Brock, can you explain to us some examples of what a job can be in Shoplogix?
No, sure. And it kind of depends upon the customer and in the way they run their operations. It can be, if you're a tooling shop or a mold shop, you might have a die number or mold number that you load on the machine, and you just want to be able to track by that. We talked about maybe some of the food industries that might be based upon, say, a recipe or a SKU. Or maybe a batch number that you're trying to track, or it could be based on, say, a customer work order. You actually track against the customer's work order in their system, or you have a shop floor work order where you combine multiple customer work orders together. So it could be a variety of different identifiers, but it's just kind of a way you uniquely kind of plan and want to track your job out there on the floor.
Yeah, so it looks like we have some examples here of where you might find some of these key identifiers.
Yeah, in this case, you've got item numbers, from the bill of material. You could have an actual work order number from an ERP. It could be a SKU, like in this case, it's a clothing item. Could be a tool number or mold number like you see in the lower left, or I have some customers, it's basically they make 3 sizes, and they make a 3-ounce, a 3-ounce container, an 8-ounce container, and a 16-ounce container, the same thing. They just repackage it differently. So that's all they have, is they just have 3 sizes, and that's the way they want to track their work.
Okay, great. So, jobs allow users to identify their work on assets. That's all great, but what kind of information from a job can and should customers be pulling into Whiteboard and analytics?
Yeah, I mean, the basic raw, you essentially do have to have an identifier, some name, and a rate, an expected number of pieces per minute or expected number of pieces per hour. You can either provide us a rate, or if you give us the expected production amount and the expected runtime, we'll calculate the rate. So it's kind of, we give us the rate one of those 2 different ways. Again, you don't necessarily have to provide us the expected production amount. That's an option, okay? Most of our customers actually just give us the rate. They don't give us, I'm going to do 10,000 pieces in 2.5 hours or something of that nature. There's also the cycle factors. That's key in the phase, especially injection molding or maybe packaging. I might be doing, if I'm running a large size container, I might be making 1 package per cycle. If I'm making a smaller package, I might be making 4 or 8 per cycle. So those are the things you can also set up inside the job. You can do that for your raw counts. You can also do it for how you scrap things out. You also can do some things where you can say, let's say I'm a bottling company and I want to track cans. I might want to say, I want to see fluid ounces as well as cases packed. So you can provide factors inside that job characteristic. So I can convert my bottles to, say, gallons, maybe from a PM or maintenance viewpoint, because I have to do filter changes every so many gallons. Or I might want to see how many cases I've shipped out to my customers. You also can put in cycle time. In other words, every time I set this product up, it's going to take me 45 minutes. I can put the expected start date, the expected ship date. There's a wide variety of information you can put in for the job, but basically the 2 things you really need are, one is just an identifier and what is your rate, then you can go from there.
Great, really helpful. So, what other type of reportable information, Brock, can a customer add to Shoplogix? And is there a way you could easily organize this information for down the road to make your advanced reporting easier?
Yeah, and it goes into the filters, which are the secondary characteristics. Kind of one example could be color. If I'm in the injection molded industry, adding a red colorant might be more problematic than running something that's a black color. I might just want to be able to track on colors because there's just different characteristics of handling different colors. Size is obviously one, like I talked about before. I want to see, hey, how do all my 4-ounce containers compare to, maybe an 8-ounce container because of just issues with the filling process. Packaging process, especially you talk about food, you talk about being in the food industry. If I'm doing yogurt and I'm doing a 4-pack of yogurt versus a 24 case pack with shrink wrap, it might be a lot more problematic when I'm trying to pack out a 4-pack because I got to kind of stack them and wrap the cardboard around them and do a glue versus a bulk pack process. So you can track your packaging factors. You can do a product family, kind of say, this is part of, some, basic characteristics of, some package family, some product family I have that might say, I've got 4 or 5 different variations of this product. I'd like to be able to group them together. And you could also put some of the customer information in there. You could say, this is the customer's SKU. So if the customer says, hey, I had a problem with this particular product, you could then cross-reference against the customer's work order or say the customer's SKU. And you can have up to 50 filters. Most people don't go that far, but the database will handle up to 50.
Fantastic. So using job filters makes it easier to sort of categorize the different jobs you're running across your assets for that more advanced drill down reporting and analytics. Okay, so the additional job data dimension in summary really helps customers in that decision-making process. How do I optimize or improve the various production processes within my facility? But Brock, can you walk us through some examples of how a customer might benefit from adding job data into Shoplogix?
Yeah, the one thing would be, especially I think maybe from a financial operational viewpoint, is we talked about having rate as a requirement. So if I have the rate as a requirement, when I put my, when the corporate standard came out that I can run, say, 62 pieces a minute, on this line for this product, that may have been when the machine was brand new and the tooling was brand new. And you may find out that, you've done 6 or 7 runs of that product and you can't run 62. You can only run, say, 57 products, 57 pieces a minute during that run. So maybe from a pricing viewpoint, you need to, up the price of that product. Conversely, you may have made engineering changes and maybe you're no longer running 62 parts per minute. You can run 65.5. So maybe you can give some pricing to your customers, or that's a more profitable item. So that's some of the insight you get from having the job data, is you can actually see your standards versus reality. And it really doesn't matter if it's tires or granola. And many of the customers I've seen where they all had this kind of variation from the kind of the spec that was set up maybe a while back to actually how it actually runs on the floor. And not only that, from a kind of a, not only seeing kind of the average rate, we also can set up what we call the top historical speed, which says, hey, we can set some parameters and say, I want to look at this product and show me the best performance I had over, say, like a 1 hour block. So maybe you've made a tweak and it's 62.5, you're averaging, but you notice there are times that you can actually hit maybe 65, 66 parts per minute. And maybe you need to take a look at what was going on during that time frame. Was it a different operator? Or is it a slightly different product maybe that you were running in a family of products? But it gives you some insight into what's truly the maximum capability of that machine.
Yeah. So in short, this new dimension of jobs allows you to understand the impact of your product mix and your product volume on some of those key metrics: profitability, performance, scheduling, etc.
Yeah, in fact, you may even find out that sometimes customers will do analysis and they will find out that not only is it the expected rate of that product across, they say, an average of all the machines, you may find out that product A runs better on machine 1 and product B runs a lot better on machine 2, just because of the characteristics of that machine.
Fantastic. Those are pretty unique and great insights. Okay, so, brings us to our next point. We know what information we can get. We know the benefits of it. Where do our customers actually interact with job data in Shoplogix?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of got two places we store data, and if most of these customers here, they're existing customers, they're familiar with the whiteboard. And one of the things you can see in the whiteboard is what we call the job defaults table. The defaults table is kind of like the menu. These are the potential jobs you can run on that machine. It will also show you what you're currently running on the machine. But basically, the defaults aren't in analytics. Again, that's kind of your options, your menu. When you look at the job table, that's the actual history of stuff that you have run on that asset. You'll see that in whiteboard, and also that is the data that gets passed over to analytics.
Great, really helpful. And we'll be diving into the platform to show you in more detail, but great summary, thanks. Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, to recap, we covered the type of job details you can bring into whiteboard and analytics, where you see the job information. Now, I know that there's multiple ways you can actually get job data into Shoplogix. So can you walk us through some of these?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is to just type it in, because you can go to the whiteboard and you can say new job. You can type in the job number. You can type in some of the characteristics of the job. You can type in the rate. You can type in the production amount, all that kind of stuff, and you can save it. You can actually edit the default, the default list right there in front of you. I have some customers who do work orders, but their work orders run for a long time, so they actually type in the work orders. Or you can just manually create a standard list. Remember, I said I had the one customer that runs like 3, 8, and 12 ounce sizes. You could just literally set up and put in 3, 8, and 12 ounces with the different rates and load it in the machine and be done with it. And that's what your operator would pick up and go with. So you can just manually type it in. Now, I'll admit operators are usually not that thrilled about it because they don't like to type. So we'll talk about how to load option number 2 there. Great. And basically there's options. Notice I got 2, 1A, B, and C. They all use kind of the same behind the scenes tool, but there's just different ways of doing it. Most of our customers, we can give you a job upload template, which is an Excel spreadsheet. Every site has got somebody who does the planning for the facility. Beverly knows, the machines inside out. She works with the customer, works with the customers and the sales reps. She knows the incoming work orders. She'll plan out the work for the week. She could upload that, put that data into an Excel spreadsheet, and then hit a macro, and the macro would upload, I guess it does it machine by machine, but you could actually upload that data up to the default list, and that's pretty much immediate. I mean, if you hit the button that says send jobs, it appears in the job list within 30 seconds, okay? Now, that still involves a human doing some Excel typing. If you can dump that raw data out from your IT guys can dump that data out, they can send that onto the collector PC, which is what gathers your data. That file goes on the collector PC. We just pick it up and we do the upload. Same thing, much like the macro, it's just grabbing that data from a different source, and it creates the job list right there in front of you. or you actually can do a direct call. They can format that data, make that call directly from into our database with some security, obviously, but it also will populate the default list. So again, it doesn't start anything. It just creates that default list, that option for the operators to pick from. The one thing it doesn't do, also, it does not force that order. So let's say maybe you load jobs 1 through 10 into the queue, and your operator or your production supervisor or the plant manager looks at it and goes, wow, if we run 1, 2, and 8, we can save ourselves some change over time. So they're given some freedom, but that is the list they have in front of them. Also, if they are missing a job, a hot job comes in, you can go back to option number 1, which is to type it in. Okay.
Yeah.
And do that. All right. Now there is the ability to automatically start from that list. All right. So that's option 3, which is, hey, you use option 2 above to actually load the list in. If you're using a PLC, your HMI might have a SKU or product number or job number that we could pick up real time, or your IT folks could pass over a variable to us and says, oh, you know what? Hey, this is job number 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we look at the default list and we say, oh, hey, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll start it. So it does a lookup inside that defaults table and starts it. It also can be based upon the job ID, like a mold number or work order number. It could be based off a filter. Like, so you may have the job identifier may be a work order number, but the filter may be a part number. And the work order number is just some randomly generated thing in your ERP system, but the filter is the part number. So you can do that lookup either off the main identifier or off the filter. It just has to be one-to-one relationship. So those are kind of the 3 steps. So you can automatically load, you can automatically start. And again, we're dependent upon somebody feeding that information over to us.
Yeah, fantastic. So, option 1, ideal for ad hoc additional jobs, or when you don't have a ton of jobs. Maybe you also don't have a ton of IT support. That's a great option. As you sort of progress with Shoplogix and you're trying to eliminate as much manual data entry, we can start exploring option 2 and even option 3. So what I did add here was a quick screenshot of our job upload template. Just for everyone to contextualize. I know a lot of our users don't interact with this, so anyone on the call might be curious as to what kind of information is housed in this. Again, we'd have a list of the unique jobs that run on each machine within your facility, and we can add these different filters for those reporting capabilities we were exploring earlier. The name and customer information, conversion factors of, bottles in each package, cycle factor information, the expected run speed, the expected setup. So this is a pretty easy to use and read template. And then all you would have to do, as Brock mentioned, was click send jobs. And this almost immediately will populate across the different machine views in Shoplogix whiteboard. Anything to add here?
No. Like you said, it's very immediate, and most customers do break it out machine by machine by machine, because that's how they plan out their. You can't put all your machines on one sheet, but I can just tell you when you hit send jobs, it uploads that entire sheet. So just best practices to do it asset by asset. That's all.
Asset by asset. Thanks for clarifying. So for maybe our more advanced customers or anyone looking to completely eliminate manual entry, can you discuss what our sort of integration opportunities are?
Yeah. Well, got to remember the previous sheet was all about essentially primarily kind of creating that defaults list and then somehow starting something off that default list. There also is a tighter integration, which not only do you create the job, but the job is actually loaded and started in Shoplogix. So there is kind of what I call the passive system, which is basically your ERP, your scheduling system has some kind of a trigger that says, oh, I have just started this job. And it will then pass that data over to Shoplogix. You also can do it kind of post after, after the fact, because you can say, oh, this job actually started at 9:30 with the transaction kicked off at 10:30. As long as it passes over a 9:30 start time, we'll start the job at 9:30. And also we'll retroactively go back and say, oh, okay, all the production between say 10:30 and 9:30, we will recalculate that based upon the rate for the 9:30 start, as well as the conversion factors and everything. But it does require some IT integration, because basically this is essentially every time your system generates a transaction, it's firing off a transaction to us. We are just passively waiting for information to flow into us. Now, the other option, which is a little more advanced, would be, oh, Shoplogix is pulling your system. So we have some middleware that actively is looking in your databases and saying, hey, are there any transactions that have started, say, in the last 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it would be, the polling rate. We would then grab that data, export it out, do a transformation, load it into our system, and again, do a job start. So it automatically would say, oh, I'll end the old job, I'll start the new job. And again, based upon the timestamp. This requires IT integration, and also Shoplogix needs access to your data to do this, because in this case, we're actively pulling your systems. These are the more complex options, but we do have some customers doing it. And I think, Francesca, we have another webinar coming up that goes into this in more detail, correct?
Yeah, so for anyone interested on the call who's an active customer interested in exploring this method number 5, the active integration, we will have an upcoming webinar. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about integration, you can reach out to your account manager, or contact us through our help center, and we can set up a meeting to discuss. A quick benefit from this last option as well is it can be a two-way communication channel, where we're also pumping back some of that key Shoplogix production data automatically into your ERP or planning system as well. So lots to explore here, but I guess that's for another day.
Yeah, and also I'm kind of the API person. So if somebody has some questions regarding our API tool for just kind of raw data or job data, they can feel free to reach out to me.
Great. Okay, so let's jump into Shoplogix quickly to show you the different areas where you interact with jobs in Whiteboard. And then we'll show you some use cases as well. So everyone's familiar with our whiteboard, where you can easily navigate to the job list in this default list is at the machine level. So, clicking on, line 1, the wrapper machine. In this right-hand panel, I can navigate to the job list. And we'll see a few things pop up here. So immediately we see the machine in question and the current time view. And we can see that right now we're running a Cadbury product on the wrapper. And we can click into it to analyze some of the key job details. Brock, is there anything you want to summarize here?
Yeah, I mean, this is also just someone just going, hey, the operator can people can change things. You can also do some lockdowns on this screen so that people can't alter things. Yeah. But that's kind of the default list. But obviously you can see the cycle factor in there. So in other words, I'm making 1 part per machine cycle. Again, you could make this, if you're doing packaging, it might be 4 per cycle. Again, this is where you set your run speed. Expectation times. Then also the filters are there. So this is kind of the first 5 you see. So this says, hey, I'm doing this at 24 pack, right? It's 24 pieces per pack, and I'm doing it for Walmart, a stock chocolate. And then there's the factors down there. And again, this goes kind of back to that whole, this is not set up by this example, but this goes back to that whole analogy of, oh, gallons translates to bottles translates to cases, but my base unit is the cans or the bottles. Inventory would be your gallons, right? Lot would be your cases or pallets. And then line cycle factor is more of a special option where you have like an index line where one line feeds another. And that's more of a special use case, especially where you're kind of going through multiple processes. And you can actually set an OEE rate based upon, the slowest machine, and also set up some conversion factors. It's kind of these, if more standalone machines, it's not applicable. Also for scrap factors, maybe for some reason, even though you say I'm scrapping out a unit of 1, you want to record pounds of waste. So you might want to say, hey, every unit of scrap is really, 0.5, because that's 8 ounces of waste. So this is again where you can set up those cycle factors. These also can be locked down. Down below, you see end job and pull job. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if you want to, yeah, just end job would mean actually if you want to end the job and stop the job and not have an active job on the line, you can do that. Pull job is more for something situation where I have set up a machine. I spent an hour doing setup. I was supposed to run 5,000 parts, so I ran 2,000. I pulled the job, which is basically an incomplete job. So the second time I start that job, I won't get that expected hour of setup because essentially I've already taken a bite of that apple is kind of the analogy I make. These are buttons that can be turned off. One thing to just let you know that if you have the end job and pull job taken off the system, if the operator picks job picks job 2 and starts job 2, that'll automatically end job 1 and what's in the queue. The operator does not manually have to end the job and start the job. Some customers do that because for the way they do their financials, they don't want to see an active job on the line over the weekend. So it's kind of based upon your financials and the preferences you want.
Great. So sounds like, in summary, this is where you come to see what's currently running and your job default list below. This is where you can change key job information, end jobs, pull jobs from the line, or, which is customizable to each customer. You can lock down these so that operators wouldn't be able to accidentally change or end jobs in whiteboard themselves. So then what we're looking at here is moving forward. How would you start a new job on the line? So Brock's first opportunity or option for entering job details into Shoplogix. This is the manual path you could take.
Yep.
And then this is the job default list that he was referring to. So
one thing also you want to show just real quickly, if you click on Oreos, if you click on just a job, if you would, thank you. Notice where it says start. If you select where it says now, if you mouse in there and click, one thing you can do, operators can focus on doing the setup and getting the line running. And now let's say it's noon and the operator goes, oh man, I started this job at 11:15. You can go into the system and set your start time clock in the past. Yeah. So in case there is a little bit of a human error, somebody goes, oh man, we've been running that job for 45 minutes. You can go in, reset the time. And again, it'll retroactively go back and make all your adjustments. So don't feel that you have to boom, start it, at that set point in time. You have the option to kind of retroactively go back.
Great. No, thanks for adding that, Brock. Okay, great. So we did just look at what Shoplogix looks like in our whiteboard, but what we would love to show you now. Can you see my screen still, Brock?
Yes, there we go. Yep, we're good.
Great. Is, one of our biggest benefits is, what kind of reporting can come out of these job details in Shoplogix. So, did I overgo? Sorry, just give me 2 seconds. Yeah, I skipped it. So here's a good example from one of our customers, one of our customer plants that uses multiple job filters to account for some of the nuanced or maybe more technical properties that are associated with each job. So what we're looking at here is a pivot table that summarizes all the jobs run on the various different days across various machines using various cutters, materials that have different processes and product attributes. And, what's really beneficial here and why these filters are helpful is you can actually pull them into production reporting to help identify, what are my greatest limiting factors of performance? So is it a specific die? Is it a specific machine? Is it a specific product? What's impacting my performance? And other key metrics. So for example, looking at this chart, I can't find my mouse, we see that 7 jobs exceeded their setup time. So this type of reporting with filters and job information allows you to drill in to see, what are the commonalities across these jobs that are contributing to, missing our setup performance times. So how can we then, from a CI perspective, really drill into those key processes to drive improvements? Brock, do you have anything to add to this slide?
No, and again, also you can kind of see, you can see those are the filters we talked about, right? You can obviously see the job number is the identifier, but everything you see to the right of that those are the various filters, the secondary keys that have been added to the system.
Right. So this is the same customer who also uses job reporting to analyze the impact of various process that are specific to jobs on some key metrics. So what we're looking at are 4 column charts that represent the production volume produced by one department. And, each process is broken out for these jobs. So, we've got slitting, we've got punching, we have, a laser process and other. And at a simple glance, we can see that performance varies by the process. So from a continuous improvement perspective, just by looking at this example, we can see how critical it is to break out each process so you can truly understand where opportunities for improvement lie within each process. So, what other kind of key insights could we take away from this? Well, we could look at our product mix. If, we're looking at the puncher, we know that, as total production on that requires the punching process increases, so as this volume increases, we could potentially expect our departmental performance to go down because this black line is showing us our speed or our performance for this process. It's not really making improvements over time. So these are the type of sort of nuanced and granular details you could gather from these types of job reporting. Brock, anything to add here?
The other thing also, we've kind of focused here on speed a little bit. Again, for folks who are familiar with Shoplogix, you've also been doing a lot of downtime entry. So the other thing now you can do is now you can slice and dice your downtime. So now instead of doing your downtime Pareto, say by shift, right, or by day or by month, now you can also say, wow, I want to break out the month, my Pareto, my downtime Pareto for the month, but I also want to see that broken out by job. So in other words, show me the top 3 downtimes for each of, each job or each filter I ran. So now I can say, wow, or I can slice it the other way. I can say, show me the downtime broken out by the job. So I can see, okay, my film change downtime, wow, 65% of them are allocated against this particular family of product because maybe the film's slightly stickier, it's a different size or something, but you can again do the same thing with your downtimes.
Great. Exactly. It's just another dimension for more granularity and being more prescriptive with your CI initiatives. So the last thing we wanted to show was an example of sort of top historical speed. So as Brock mentioned earlier, job information is a prerequisite from using our top historical speed feature. To re-summarize what it is, well, it's one of our newer features that helps identify the best sustainable speed for a job across various machines. And it's really designed to give operations teams and continuous improvement specialists a better understanding of the true potential run speeds and ensure that targets are based on realistic and historical performance data. So, why it's important to A, use this feature, and B, have that job information is, it enables you to improve the accuracy of job and product cost metrics, for example, through enhanced job reporting. It helps outline the top achievable run speed per SKU for product, part, mold, all of those various different filters. So from a scheduling perspective, it's very helpful. And it really provides the necessary data for helping you accurately define those production goals. So go ahead, Brock.
No, and again, just one of those things, we cannot enable this function. The only reason this function could be enabled is if you have jobs. If you don't have job data, we can't do it. So it's just the way the analysis of this works.
Yeah. So another use case or an example of how you can use job filters for more advanced reporting, you'll see on the right-hand side of the screen, we have a graph that summarizes a line graph that summarizes some key details regarding jobs. So, on this given machine, what we're seeing here is, let me find my mouse. This purple line is summarizing the top speed reached for a job on a specific day. So this is the speed on the y-axis, the days on the x-axis. This is tracking the job's performance. What you'll see here is every time this red line, it's summarizing your job's top historical speed. And what we're seeing here is the actual speed performance. So what we could use this for, or these data points for, is understanding any excess machine hours used if you're not performing at your top historical speed. And we can start analyzing this against our job filters to see what are those potential limiting factors preventing us from reaching our top speeds, or that are most problematic for performance on specific machines. Anything else, Brock, that you would add here?
Nope.
Okay, fantastic. So those are just a few use cases of how you could use job data for more advanced reporting. That's it from our end, but we did cover quite a bit. Are there any questions from anyone on the call regarding, setup, how you can get job data into Shoplogix? Any questions about what information or limitation on informations you have? Anything like that? Any closing remarks, Brock, from your end?
No.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We won't hold you over for too much longer. But again, if you do have any questions about any content that was covered, you can reach out to us either through your support team at Shoplogix, or if you have any questions, you can direct them to help@shoplogix.com, and we'll be happy. Oh, I just saw a question pop through.
Okay.
Can't go anywhere yet, Brock. Oh, it's just a thanks, folks. Thanks, Gary.
Okay.
Okay, have a good day, everyone. Appreciate your time. Oh,
No,
Adam,
another question. Yep.
you mentioned that 50 filters are possible to be
Yeah.
used. In analytics, only 20 are available. Are there plans to increase that? So yes, in analytics, we do limit the number of filters that you can use. We would explore increasing that when it becomes a sort of sizable problem for our customers. So if this is something that you're running into, I would recommend please reaching out to us. We would love to sort of quantify, the number of customers that are using over 20 filters in their reports. So we'll work with you to understand the need, and we can build that into a roadmap accordingly.
Yes, and if you really need to pull the data there, you can do an API call and then suck that data into, Access or Excel or Tableau or something of that nature. Just that if you do need it, you truly use those 50 filters.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Right. Thank you.